As Fred Lewis continues to struggle with his gold goals this season on Gold Rush, Parker Schnebel finally showed up to offer some advice. Parker and Tony Beets are both extremely successful, so it seems good when they offer advice. However, when Parker told Fred what he was doing wrong, it didn't really set well. Here is what went down in the most recent episode of Gold Rush between Parker and Fred. When Parker Schnebel offers some advice to someone about gold mining, that person should listen. No one on the show has been as successful as Parker, who has become a legitimate gold miner, respected even outside the realm of reality television. He is so good at his job now that some fans think Parker is working his way out of Gold Rush. This week, Parker went to visit former military medic Fred Lewis and offer him some advice on what he is doing wrong. Fred has remained frustrated this season, saying that if he doesn't hit his goal, it is likely finished for him and his team in the future of the gold mining industry. Parker pointed out of the biggest problems with Fred's setup was his screens. When Parker showed up, he told him that the screens were full of holes in the sluice box. Parker pointed at the big rocks and said, "These big rocks, they aren't supposed to be here." Before Parker arrived at Fred's camp, the former military man said that Parker was rude the last time they met up and told him off. That isn't exactly what happened, as when they met last. Fred was looking for land to mine and Parker just told him it was hard to find. This likely led to his frustration at seeing his Gold Rush star again and getting critical advice. It seems weird that Fred would be so thin-skinned when it comes to taking advice from someone like Parker on Gold Rush. Recently, the Clayton brothers went to Fred for help. He talked down to them, and his crew dismissed them, pointing out everything they were doing wrong. Fred was also harsh to his own stepson, who works on his crew. Fred pointed out things he felt he was doing wrong, with Fred willing to point the finger at everyone else. Someone like Parker offering up some advice shouldn't seem to push him into the wrong way of thinking. Of course, this is reality television. That means drama needs to exist on Gold Rush. There is a chance it wasn't as bad as the episode made it look in the end. What are your thoughts on Fred Lewis and his struggles this season on Gold Rush? Do you think he should pay Parker Schnebel more respect than he seems to when given advice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Sean Esalilos has been a freelance writer for over 25 years and is a voting member of the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle. He is also a published author with a book about the Stephen King dollar baby filmmakers. Gold Rush. Parker tells Fred what he is doing wrong in the heart of the Klondike. As winter faded and the promise of a new mining season blossomed, tensions rose between two iconic gold miners, Parker Schnebel and Fred Hurt. Both men were driven by ambition and the insatiable thirst for gold, yet their approaches couldn't have been more different. Fred, a seasoned veteran of the gold mining world, had a style steeped in tradition, while Parker, the young and audacious miner, thrived on innovation and calculated risk. As the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Parker found himself surveying the mine site. He had just returned from a successful season and was eager to kick off another one, but his mind wandered to Fred's operation. They had shared a claim last season, and while Parker had struck it rich, Fred's results were less than stellar. It was time for a candid conversation. "Hey, Fred, can we talk for a minute?" Parker called out, his voice cutting through the crisp morning air. Fred, stooped over a piece of machinery, looked up, curiosity etched across his weathered face. "Sure, Parker. What's on your mind?" Fred replied, brushing the dirt off his hands. Parker gestured for them to sit on a nearby log. "I've been thinking about your approach this past season. I know you've got years of experience, but I see some things that might help you improve next season." Fred raised an eyebrow, a mix of skepticism and intrigue. You think you can teach an old dog new tricks. It's not about age, it's about adapting. I respect what you've done, but I believe you're missing some key opportunities. Fred leaned back, crossing his arms. All right, kid. Lay it on me. What do you think I'm doing wrong? Parker took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. First, let's talk about your equipment choices. I noticed you're still using that old wash plant. It's reliable, sure, but it's not as efficient as the newer models out there. Upgrading could save you time and increase your yield significantly. Fred nodded slowly, the gears in his mind turning. I get that, but it's been a dependable workhorse. I don't want to invest in something that might break down. True, but think about the potential gains. I've been using a more modern setup, and it's paying off. The initial investment can seem daunting, but if you calculate the increased gold recovery, it could really change your bottom line. Fred uncrossed his arms and leaned forward, his interest piqued. All right, I'm listening. What else? Parker continued. Your crew dynamics could use some work too. I know you've worked with the same guys for years, and loyalty is important. But sometimes fresh blood brings new energy and ideas. Have you considered bringing in younger miners who might have a different perspective on things? Fred frowned, clearly resistant. These guys know the land and the equipment better than anyone. It's hard to find that kind of loyalty. I get that, Parker said, but every generation has something new to offer. Plus, younger miners might be more open to trying new techniques or technologies. It's all about balance. Fred considered this, scratching his beard thoughtfully. Maybe you're right, but how do I ensure they respect the history and methods we've used? Lead by example. Show them the value of both tradition and innovation. If you can blend the two, you'll have a stronger operation. Fred nodded, the cogs of his mind whirring. What about strategy? I'm sure you have something to say about that. Parker smiled, eager to share. Absolutely. Last season, I focused on data-driven decisions. Instead of relying solely on instinct or experience, I analyzed the soil samples and used geological surveys to pinpoint the most promising areas. You could do the same. It might seem tedious, but it pays off. Fred sighed, looking out over the mine. You're right again. I've been so focused on the old ways that I haven't embraced the technology available today. Exactly, Parker replied, his enthusiasm infectious. Imagine what you could achieve if you combined your experience with data analysis. It's about making informed decisions. Fred rubbed his chin, deep in thought. What about the financial side? I've always managed my money conservatively, but it seems you take more risks. That's true. I do take calculated risks. It's essential to understand the market and the potential rewards of investment. Diversifying your operations could be key. Maybe even look into partnerships or joint ventures. Partnerships? Fred echoed, clearly intrigued yet cautious. I've always preferred to go it alone. I get that. But think about it. Pooling resources with someone who shares your vision can lead to bigger projects and, ultimately, more gold. Just make sure it's someone trustworthy. Fred chuckled. Trust doesn't come easy in this business. No, it doesn't, Parker agreed. But when you find the right people, it can be invaluable. The conversation began to shift from critique to collaboration. They explored strategies, discussing the latest technologies in gold mining and ways to improve efficiency and yields. Parker felt a sense of camaraderie growing, a bridge forming between their contrasting styles. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the land, Fred finally spoke, his tone softening. You've given me a lot to think about, Parker. It's hard to admit that I might be stuck in my ways. Change is hard for everyone, Fred. But look at the success you've had. Imagine what more you could achieve if you embraced some new ideas. Fred chuckled again, this time genuinely. You know, I might just take your advice. It's not every day a young punk comes along and opens an old man's eyes. Parker grinned. And it's not every day I get to learn from someone with your experience. Let's make this a partnership then. I'll share what I've learned, and maybe you can teach me a thing or two about the old ways. Deal, Fred replied, extending his hand. You're not so bad for a kid. As they shook hands, both men felt a renewed sense of purpose. The harsh realities of gold mining remained unchanged, but they realized that by combining their strengths, they could forge a path to greater success. In the end, it wasn't just about gold. It was about growth, collaboration, and the thrill of discovery. Whether it was new techniques or the enduring power of tradition, with the promise of the new season looming, Parker and Fred set to work, ready to embrace the challenges ahead, armed with fresh perspectives and a shared vision. The Klondike would once again bear witness to their relentless pursuit of gold, this time as a united front.